Please like and subscribe.
When you have quality storytellers and quality actors and people who are serious about their craft, you can create something really amazing.
Welcome to Galactic Initiative. I'm your host, Jeff. Joining me to discuss Andor is Grand Admiral Sean. Welcome, Sean.
Hello, my friend.
Andor Season 1. You and I rewatched it in preparation for Season 2 and this video, a review, and a look ahead. When we discussed how to cover it, we decided we would break Season 1 into story arcs. But let me ask, with the passage of years, since last you watched all 12 episodes, what stands out? What were your overall impressions of Season 1?
Things that stood out the most to me, one is the dialogue. Compared to all the other Star Wars TV shows that we got, just the dialogue was on another level. It was complex and intellectual. It didn't pander to the lowest common denominator. It didn't rely on tricks or weak humor. I mean, there was humor in it, but not simple jokes or slapsticky kind of stuff. The other thing, again, was the production values. Being on actual sets for almost the entire show, it shows up. It shows up in the background. It shows up, in the way that the characters are interacting with their environments. The look and the feel of the show, I mean, it looked like Star Wars. It felt like Star Wars on actual physical sets and not relying on the volume like the other shows do. I mean, yeah, there was some volume used in there, of course, but Ferrix, for example, like they built the whole town. None of that was relying on the volume, having stuff projected in the background to make your small set look bigger. And it really paid off. It gave, so much depth to the show. And I think that's a word that I come back to a lot. It's a deep show, whether it's messaging, themes, characters, sets, and all that stuff, the lore of the universe of Star Wars, all those things. It's a deep show, and it really stands out. And especially after suffering through Acolyte and third season of Mando, Boba Fett, Book of Boba Fett, Skeleton Crew was a step up in a lot of ways from some of those shows, but still not the quality of Andor. So it really, again, it reinforced in my mind that when you have quality storytellers and quality actors and people who are serious about their craft, whether it be production design or script writing or whatever, that you can create something really amazing. And so that's the kind of stuff that stood out to me. Plot, story, dialogue, production value.
Let's dive deeper. First, acting. As I rewatched Season 1, I appreciated the performances more than ever before. Credit to the cast members and directors. I could relate to every cause and effect, every ambition, and every poor choice. The characters and circumstances were grounded, which turned off many potential viewers. I've heard people complain about Andor being overly analogous to the modern world. I disagree. For me, it balanced sci-fi adventure and real-world thriller. In fact, on the thriller side, it successfully incorporated several genres: espionage, heist, politics, and prison break. The script was excellent, but the cast members elevated the entire production. Say a few words about the acting in Andor.
Well, I mean, we can just start with Luthen, right? The character of Luthen and the performance in that role. You're actually getting 2 or 3 characters depending on where Luthen is in his machinations of the rebellion, right? Whether he's dealing with Mon Mothma or whether he's dealing with Cassian himself or whether he's dealing with Saw Gerrera. Like every time he's on screen, he has almost a different personality, right? Because he's manipulating these people. He's manipulating all these other characters to achieve an end for himself. And probably the most honest Luthen that we get is when he's giving the speech about sacrificing everything. But just the nuance of the performance, the scene where he's on his ship and he's putting on the wig and putting the rings on, and he puts on that affectation of the art dealer. Like, he doesn't say anything. It's all conveyed through facial expression, and through physical control, right? The way that his arms are moving and his posture and like all these things, and his interactions when he's with Mon Mothma in the shop, it conveys an intensity that it's subtle in a way. I mean, it's intense, but it's subtle. And it's just that type of a performance. And then, Mon Mothma is also, this woman who is hiding in plain sight, a respected politician that everybody thinks is kind of a do-gooder or whatever, but she's fomenting rebellion in the background. And you can just feel the pressure and the stress and how she's being crushed and how she's being backed into a corner and has no options, and that cornered animal intensity of self-preservation. And it all comes out in these wonderfully banal conversations about table settings and having too many tequila shots at a diplomatic function, and and who's going to pick the kids up after school. Like, it is just, again, a very layered performance, a lot of emotional intensity going on, and then again, all the other characters, all the supporting actors and actresses. I mean, everybody on Aldhani, the heist crew, were all amazing performances. All of the Imperial officers and all that stuff, believable. Like, you get the believability of the boredom of oppression. These guys are these basically colonial oppressors that are on this planet dealing with what they consider to be a primitive culture, and the disdain that they have for it, but then the sheer boredom, right? They're out there crushing the universe, eradicating civilizations, cultures, languages, peoples, from these planets that they deem are necessary for whatever their imperial work is. And they go about it in such a technocratical way that they're actually bored, and guys are like, I just need to get off this planet, or I don't want to work a full shift today. Like, again, it takes, and some of this comes from the writing, of course, but these characters are playing, they're playing these totalitarian fascists in such a way that, with Denise Gow and Dedra Miro's character, like at the beginning of the series, you're rooting for her. She is the most SS clone amalgam that you're going to get on screen, right? The whole speech that her boss gives about how we're in the business of healthcare, right? We identify symptoms and we treat diseases or whatever. Like, and yet, even though they're having these conversations, and even though she's a brutal torturer and just a committed ideologue for this fascist regime, like, you're rooting for her to get ahead at work. It's really intense that these characters can create these scenarios for the viewers where, you're so invested in what's going on with them that you can feel the pressure, you can feel the stress, you can feel the fear, you can, and then you can also, in weird ways, identify with Dedra and Cyril. It's like, anybody who's ever had an overbearing mom is like totally rooting for Cyril to get ahead, yet he is a fascist, right? And he is a zealot. He wants to be in the regime, and he can't. He wants to be a part of the imperial machine, the network, the oppression. Like, that's his aspirational goal. And you're like, man, I hope he gets that, because then he doesn't have to live with that mom of his. He doesn't have to eat that blue cereal anymore. It's amazing what is being conveyed to the audience, to where you can empathize and sympathize with characters that you're supposed to hate. And then you can also kind of question some characters that you're supposed to love, right? Or you're supposed to root for because they're, air quotes, the good guys, right? And that's what's going to wind up, I believe, being a core piece of the storytelling in season 2, is we're going to see, we've already seen how kind of shady Cassian really is. And we've also seen how shady he is, of course, at the beginning of Rogue One. But we're going to see how he got from minor street hustler shady to shoot a guy in the back in the alleyway shady in season 2. And it's like, we're going to again be exposed to these great performances and these great characters and these great stories, and we're going to find ourselves in sort of these uncomfortable positions as the audience, because we're going to be looking at some of these people and saying, I know I should really be rooting for this person, but I don't feel comfortable doing that. And then conversely, you'll be saying things like, I really shouldn't be rooting for this person, but I am. And if it was anything close to like the mail-in performances we got in Book of Boba Fett, we wouldn't care about any of it. Like, we wouldn't care about the characters, we wouldn't care about the story, because the actors and actresses in these roles are not doing such elevated work to get us to care about it. And so kudos to them. Great casting, great, and of course great writing and directing, but great performances can make up for a lot of shortfalls in whether it be a script or a direction. But when you have good scripts, good directing, and good actors, it's a very powerful product, which is what we got in season 1.
Definitely. Maturity and believability were bonuses. The moral quandaries of Cassian, Luthen, and Mon were intense and unforgiving. The moral relativism of Dedra and Cyril was simultaneously attractive and repulsive. Within 5 minutes, we knew Andor wasn't created for children. Too many Star Wars productions in the Disney era infantilized their audiences. You covered the superlative performances by Stellan Skarsgård, Genevieve O'Reilly, the Aldhani crew, Kyle Soller, etc. Nods to Diego Luna and Andy Serkis, who were just preternatural. I will entertain no disagreement with regard to their characters. Kino Loy, come on. Serkis delivered one of the best performances in Star Wars' long history. Sacrifice and tragedy distinguish Andor from all other stories in the Star Wars galaxy. Talk about the series' grittiness or darkness. Do you anticipate the same level of maturity in season 2?
Well, I think that it's going to be darker. Season 1 was very dark. You can't, and I believe, I've listened to some interviews with Tony Gilroy and others, but mostly Tony Gilroy when it comes to this topic. And we saw this a little bit in the original trilogy. We saw it mostly in Empire Strikes Back. The stakes of what a revolution or an insurgency is, or are, I should say. How does insurgency happen? How does it become legitimate? That's the story in Star Wars, and we're getting this in Andor, right? We're getting season 1. We've got, the Empire is established. There are people who are not happy about it. There are people working independently to fight it, to destroy it as the ultimate goal, and replace it with some form of democracy. But these things are not fun, and they're not simple, and they're not jokey, and it's not stuff musicals are made out of. Okay, the seriousness of season 1, the adult themes. We had torture. We've had espionage, we've had murder, we've had betrayal, backstabbing, we've had people exploring motivations for involvement. The whole raid on Aldhani, we talk about 2 guys were in it for the money. 1 guy was in it for just the money that he needed to pay back his people and get off his, dirty homeworld or whatever. Another guy was there to steal all the money from the people who stole the money. You had other people there who were committed for various reasons against the Empire. One was again ideologically a philosopher for freedom and human rights, or rights in general. It's weird saying human rights in the Star Wars universe, but then you've got Mon Mothma's cousin, who's doing it for love, right? She's latched onto the rebellion because she's in love with a rebel, right? And so, like, her politics are weird. She's becoming more and more of a believer, I think, but I'm not sure if she's just saying the words because those are the words she thinks that her girlfriend wants to hear, or if those are the words she actually believes. But so you're exploring all these motives, and it's that whole enemy of my enemy is my friend, and politics make strange bedfellows, and all that kind of stuff, because you're seeing all these disparate parts come together. And again, this is 300 level political science kind of stuff. These people, insurgency, raising money, buying arms, smuggling. There's a lot of parallels to a lot of real world historical insurgencies and current and former revolutions and things. And there's a strong, there's a strong IRA vibe going on there. The robbing the banks to buy the guns to fight the war against the oppressor kind of a thing, right? Like that's a common thread through a lot of that. Those adult themes. I think it's going to get more adult in season 2 or more mature, whatever you want to look at. So when you say adult themes, people think about a Twi'lek party, and that's different. But these more mature themes of violence and political violence and what is acceptable or not acceptable when it comes to political violence. We're going to get more of the moral quandaries of Luthen and the do we let the people die so that we can maintain our cover, or do we participate in a little bit of our own fascism to move the ball farther down the field towards revolution? In season 1, we had the whole conversation about we want the Empire to overreact. We want the Empire to do something really bad, because if they do, then people will wake up, right? Because it's the whole frog in boiling water scenario. They've been so gradual about everything that people just haven't noticed the Empire. And then, like some of the conversations that Mon Mothma has where there are people like, well, if you're not doing anything wrong, what are you worried about? Kind of a deal. And it's that sort of low grade, slow motion tyranny, where you don't go from 0 to 1,000, it's one step at a time over a period of time. And then pretty soon it's too late. And so Luthen's like, well, we got to do something crazy. And a lot of the innocent people are going to get hurt. But ultimately the net positive is worth it. And these kinds of political conversations, when it comes to that type of stuff, again, they're going to get more intense in season 2, because I think with the potential of the Gorman massacre, if that's what they're showing us, or something similar to the Gorman massacre, you're going to see a group of insurgents who are either encouraging a group of people to rise up against the Empire so that they will be brutally massacred, so then that they can be used as a propaganda tool for fundraising and for unification of factions and like all this stuff. This is like spy thriller, CIA, KGB doing the dance and the Cold War kind of stuff, and using proxy fights and really interesting, intense, emotionally charged stuff, deep, analysis and deep conversations and themes. But there's going to be a lot more of that. I mean, we already saw torture in season 1. There's probably going to be more of that in season 2. We're going to see civilians who are protesting getting shot in the streets. We're probably going to see more revenge killing on the part of the rebels against various Imperials. That's a strong motivation for a lot of the characters that are going to be carrying over from season 1. So I think it will get darker. I think that we're going to see more overreaction on the part of the Empire. We're going to see Dedra and her colleagues really drop the facade of polite government oversight and policing into gulags and torture, and we're going to see the full evil of the Empire, and not the cartoony cackling emperor kind of evil, but like the real everyday terror of a fascist regime. And it's going to be, I think it's going to be great. It's going to provide great conflict and great resolution as part of the show. And then of course, we all know kind of where it ends, but the story arcs of like what I have questions about Luthen, like where he's going to be at the end of the show. I think there's bad things are going to happen to a lot of people we really like in this show. And that's going to be handed to you in a certain way where you're going to have to confront it. You're going to have to deal with characters you like dying or being killed off in various ways to move the story believably towards the conclusion, which is Cassian Andor riddled with guilt and self-loathing, trying to overcome, his personal darkness and realize that he's in a fight for good and to start acting like it. And so how we get there is probably going to require a lot of darkness. And so, yeah, season 2 is going to be equally, if not more, but probably more dark or adult or mature or whatever you want to call it than season 1. Maybe you get that better ending on Ferrix that you were looking for. Spend a little more time on Ferrix and seeing what's happening to the people in Cassian's absence or whatever. I don't know. Or maybe for all those fans of the prequels, we get some more Imperial politics. I don't know. Like more scenes in the Senate. Bring in the Emperor.
To that end, I would welcome events like the Spellhouse Power Station raid on screen. Increase our emotional investment with gut-wrenching chapters. Show, don't tell in that example. Introduce us to characters like Anto Krieger so we can experience sadness and anger and steel our hearts for the struggles to come. Rogue One, A New Hope, etc.
Getting Krieger in there would have been awesome, especially like if you could squeeze in a few more meetings between the rebel factions. So like you've got Luthen and Saw and Krieger together. Forrest Whitaker sold the emotional impact of Krieger. You felt it, you understood it, right? You understood the significance of it, what it meant to him, what it meant to the rebellion, the level of stakes we're playing with here, where we're sacrificing people to maintain our illusion that we don't know what's going on or whatever, or that we don't have a spy inside. Like, he sold it, and it was great. But if you had met Krieger, right, and if you'd maybe shown how like he and Saw were really tight, maybe they didn't necessarily trust Luthen, right, the two of them or whatever, like, and you built that character into the story, again, it makes his death even more impactful, and it makes Saw Gerrera's response even more understandable.
Let's end part 1 of our Andor review and preview here. We'll have more to say before the premiere of Season 2 on April 22nd. Coming soon, breakdowns of Season 1's story arcs. Subscribe to Galactic Initiative so you won't miss those videos. Sean, as always, thank you for your time.
Bro, I'm trying to save the universe from tyranny. Like, what's boring about that, right?
Viewers, thank you for watching. Please click like and check out the channel. We would appreciate your support.
Galactic Initiative is not authorized or endorsed by Lucasfilm Limited. The name Star Wars and all related materials are registered trademarks of Lucasfilm Limited, a subsidiary of the Walt Disney Company, all rights reserved. Galactic Initiative is a registered trademark, and other product and company names are trademarks of their respective holders. Use does not imply affiliation or endorsement.